News.
Okay, we'll start with this. What appears to be flying very low on the radar this weekend. In her native Costa Rica, Naomi Valle will be returning to action opposite the ring, Genesis Arias.
In what is not an MVP show, even though she was recently picked up by MVP and made her MVP debut, that did not go so well.
Thankfully for her, Big Sissy, Yocasta Valle, just so happens to have her own promotional outfit that does their own shows in their native Costa Rica, leaving the door open for Naomi Valle to rebound off that loss as soon as possible to kick off the year in the winner's bracket.
21 years old.
To her opponent, who is only 16 with only 5 professional bouts. Needless to say, they wanted to make sure they put Naomi in a fight that she could win.
Only 5 fights to Naomi Valle's 15.
Sporting a professional record, 14 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 9 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 15 professional bouts. What I remember about Naomi's last fight is she was in there with a very aggressive customer, a mid-range to inside fighter who was crowding her and, in effect, outworking her. Naomi Valle does not have the affinity for trading punches in the pocket that her big sister does. Naomi is more of a boxer and more of a mover, a fencer.
She likes to keep a bit of space between herself and her opponent. That's why she's so fleet of foot. So as you can imagine, a fighter that fights like that, having somebody in their face, crashing the pocket and forcing them to respond over and over throughout the course of a fight, it's going to make them uncomfortable. Even though Naomi has a good number of fights so far at only 21 years old, she's still very much green at a certain level.
Even greener is the 16-year-old that she's about to fight in Genesis Arias, who has a record of 4 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 1 recorded knockout, having never been knocked out in 5 fights. Last in action in October of last year against the debutante, Naomi Valle, who Genesis won a unanimous decision against. 4 out of the 5 girls that Genesis has fought have been debutantes. That's saying they made their pro debut fighting her. So those girls didn't have much experience, and neither does Genesis. But that is who Naomi is going to be fighting. In a fight that I've no doubts Naomi is going to win. In the build-up of what was her MVP debut, they stated that Naomi was also studying to be a pilot. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, while ambitious, careful that you're not dividing your time.
A pilot? You mean flying airplanes?
Indeed. Young Naomi Valle is multitasking. She's a boxer, she's studying to be a pilot, and while I think it's ambitious, like I said, careful that you're not dividing your time between what are 2 demanding, jealous professions. I'm sure that learning how to fly a plane requires a lot of focus and a lot of attention, but then again, so does boxing. It's a very jealous job.
Profession.
Now, far be it for me to tell anyone how high they should aim. If young Naomi feels that she can manage it, that she can manage both, more power to her. But one line of work is demanding enough without spreading yourself thin, trying to manage 2. And I wondered if that loss was not the byproduct of Naomi becoming distracted and all caught up in the moment, being picked up by a major promotional outfit like MVP and boxing on a major platform so soon in her career.
It took her older sister a very long time to finally get on DAZN and subsequently MVP to where by the time she did, she was already a seasoned veteran, whereas Naomi, in many ways, is still just getting started, in spite of having 15 professional bouts. When you look at who she's been fighting, a lot of girls with more losses than wins, upside-down records.
Some girls that never actually won a fight. They had fights, they just never won. She may come from a fighting family, but she still has a lot of learning to do, a lot of catching up to do with her older sister. At this time, I don't know what the state of her relationship is with MVP. Having lost in her debut, did they make the decision to jettison her? Is that relationship over? Or is this just a little side quest, a side mission, that because her sister has her own promo outfit, that affords Naomi the chance to keep busier than the other girls?
The ones relying solely on MVP to schedule their fights and promote them.
In Costa Rica, neither of the Valle sisters require all that much promotion, since Yocasta is a well-known fighter and national treasure in the region, and Naomi participated in the Costa Rican version of Dancing with the Stars, so she's well-known outside of your typical boxing market, boxing fan.
They know her. They know them.
That's Naomi's ace in the hole. that her sister is a well-established fixture in the sport, well-established enough that Naomi doesn't have to rely on MVP to do everything for her. She's not stuck out in the cold until they can sort her out. The Valle sisters can sort themselves out.
Enterprising.
Entrepreneurial, talented, and well-to-do. I expect Naomi to win a points decision this weekend if she doesn't go out there and force a stoppage.
Will anyone do anything about PEDs in 2026?
Nope.
Harsher bans?
Nope. You know why? Because the powers that be don't care. They want the best fights possible. They want racehorses who can run faster than any horse they could before them.
When you say powers that be, is that promoters? Is that the organizations?
All of the above, dude. Nobody cares. They don't really care. No one cares about fighter safety. No one cares. They care about the product. They care about the fans tuning in. They want to see the best fights possible. They want to see guys fighting to the death for 12 rounds. This is a gladiator sport. Do you think they care what we do after our careers? No. We don't get retirement. We don't get health insurance. We don't get any of that. They don't care about the health of the fighters. So are they going to do anything about PEDs? No, absolutely not.
Couldn't help find the comedy in Chris Algieri's blasé attitude towards what's supposed to be a very serious issue in the sport of boxing, doping.
Doping in the sport of boxing. Chris has got a blasé attitude about it. I think a lot of people do. I can't blame him.
I myself have said on a number of occasions, I'm not hung up on it anymore, and as far as I'm concerned, the whole goddamn sport might be doping. But what I didn't like about Chris's candor.
Powers that be?
Oh, the powers that be. The powers, they don't care. This mysterious, invisible, ethereal force.
Powers that be?
We are to assume that he's talking about the promotional outfits and the sanctioning bodies, as well as the networks that kick out the money for these fights, that underneath it all, they don't care about the fighters, they don't care about their well-being and how this affects them.
And they don't.
But you know who cares even less than they do about the fighters?
The fans?
The fighters themselves.
Wait, what?
The fighters themselves. I mean, what do you think is going on here, Chris? You think somebody's breaking into these fighters' apartments at night, gagging them like the Gimp in Pulp Fiction, tying them down and forcefully injecting these drugs into their bodies? They're doing so of their own volition. They know what they're doing. So when you talk about not caring about the fighters, Chris, I don't think the fighters care about the fighters, much less anybody else. But at least the promoters are ponying up the money for the anti-doping testing. They're doing what they can on their end, but that's all they can do. When a Jarrell Miller tests positive for not one, not two, but 3 different banned substances ahead of the Anthony Joshua fight, do you think that Jarrell Miller cared how that might affect Anthony Joshua? Taking all those drugs and then going to fight that guy?
He didn't give a damn.
Now put the shoe on the other foot. When it came out that Conor Benn tested positive for a banned substance, Chris was going to fight him anyway. He was willing to.
Well, over 2 years ago, he was still going to let the contest go on if the powers that be would have allowed it to go on. It took 2 years and a lot of effort and a lot of money to finally make the fight, but what does that tell you? That after all that, Chris decided to fight the guy anyway. It's like you're rewarding him.
He had not one, but 2 separate fights with the same guy who popped hot. So Chris Eubank Jr. wasn't about to stand on principle. None of these fighters are. So when you say that the powers that be don't care about the fighters, don't pawn off all the responsibility on them, because they're not the ones taking the punches. The fighters are.
No, let me rephrase that. They're not the ones dishing out the punches.
Whenever Joe Boxer injects a banned substance into their system to keep up with the Joneses, pursuing a competitive edge, knowing how dangerous the sport already is, he doesn't give a damn about his fellow fighter.
And in some instances, when that news breaks and a fighter finds out that he's fighting a guy who may have been using a banned substance and he decides to fight him anyway, you're complicit.
Some people might say that about Dalton Smith and the fight that he's about to have this weekend. The whole bit about Subriel Matias testing positive for very low amounts of Osterin.
Dalton Smith didn't call the whole fight off on principle. He decided to go through with it anyway, like a lot of fighters, like Robson Conceição, ahead of the Oscar Valdez fight, when it came out that Oscar tested positive for clomiphene. Robson didn't call the fight off.
Not that long ago, when it came out that Imam Katayev had once in the past tested positive for a banned substance ahead of the David Morrell fight, David Morrell didn't call the fight off. As anti-doping has become more normalized and uniform in the sport of boxing, you're noticing that more and more boxers are getting caught in the act. more and more boxers are getting busted.
What does that mean?
That this has likely been going on longer than the boxing community at large realizes, that it's more normal than people think.
Normal enough that the fighters know exactly what's going on, they know exactly what they're signing up for, and if you ask me, these blasé attitudes towards it are indicative of fighters who may be using substances themselves. If you find out that Joe Blow, who you're supposed to be fighting, may be on something and you fight him anyway, maybe it's because you figure, I'm on something too. They just don't know it.
It's what I felt about Chris Eubank Jr. ahead of the Conor Benn fight. Maybe Conor Benn was on a substance to make him stronger, so he could fight at middle, and maybe Chris was on a diuretic of some kind, so he could make the weight. The imagination left to its own devices can run wild, but the basic idea here is that this has been going on long enough, that the fighters themselves are complicit.
To a degree, responsible even. So let's not pawn off all the blame on the powers that be.
The powers that be?
This invisible enemy jeopardizing the health and well-being of the fighters when it's the fucking fighters jeopardizing the health and well-being of the fighters when it's the fucking fighters.
What do you think sticking a needle in their ass?
Think this is being done against their will, Chris? You're a smart guy. They're a party to it. And I would say no one more than the fighters is responsible for doping in the sport of boxing because it's the fighters doping. It's not Mauricio Suleiman held up in a 7-Eleven bathroom shooting that shit into his system. It's not Eddie Hearn.
It's not Frank Warren. It's not Ben Shalom. I would say it's not Oscar, but he's putting something in his system. I don't think it's Peds.
But he's doing something, and the basic idea here is, if you're going to address the problem, you have to address the problem in full, because it's not a problem that the promoters have, or the networks,
or the sanctioning bodies. It's a problem for the fighters because the fighters are doing it. They're the ones responsible.
I just don't like the way the message was packaged. Oh, the powers that be, this invisible force that can't be held responsible. We can hold somebody responsible.
The fucking fighters.
Now, I agree with Chris that nothing is going to happen and nobody's really going to be held responsible. Case in point, Ryan Garcia went from being suspended for a doping violation
straight into a title fight, loses the title fight, goes straight into another title fight.
I agree that the powers that be, and that encompasses a lot of people, don't really give a damn, but maybe it's because the fighters themselves don't really give a damn, and they're the ones taking the punches. If you ain't worried about it, why should I?
Should I be worried about it?
It's not my head that guy's trying to bash in. See the first images of Ryan Garcia in camp. In preparation for the Mario Barrios fight, you will notice the musculature of Ryan Garcia, semblant to the musculature he had ahead of the Devin Haney fight, right before he got popped.
He's on the juice.
But I don't think it's going to come out this time that he's on the juice. I told you. I think Ryan is back on the sauce, back on the juice. Now that he's back on the Golden Boy promotion side of things and he's not under scrutiny, he's free to use as much of his secret sauce as he needs to.
See, in his last fight, that was not a Golden Boy promotion show. That was a Turkey LL Chic show. Rigorous anti-doping testing.
No one there to keep your secret, so it's not a coincidence that he looked flat, that he looked like shit in that fight. Goes back over to Golden Boy, and you're telling me that he's achieved this peak physical condition from training with Henry, from training with his father.
Yeah, fucking right.
He uploaded a video of himself taking a lie detector test on his social media, still trying to clean up his image and rewrite history.
I'm innocent, I tell you.
I didn't knowingly take the aspirin. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it got there. It was the Haneys. It was Victor Conti. It was Vada. It was the
Illuminati, the Lizard People, Bohemian Grove.
They tampered with my samples. They took a piss in my protein powder, peed in my creatine, every excuse that you can think of, so that when you upload this video of yourself taking a lie detector test,
who fucking cares?
The amount of Osterin they found in Ryan's system was 60 times over the permissible threshold by the New York State Athletic Commission. A hell of a lot more than the infinitesimal amount they found in Subriel Matias. That's why Subriel didn't get suspended. Ryan did.
That's why Subriel didn't get fined. Ryan did.
Another glaring example of how the sport of boxing doesn't give a rat's furry fucking ass about doping in the sport. Not the fans, not the fighters, or the ones who pay for them to fight.
The ones making the fights.
But I will always maintain that it's the fighters' attitudes towards it that set the tone, since they're the one taking on the risks. They're the ones taking the punches, so that if they're the ones that don't give a damn,
why would we?
I run in a bodega. I tell everybody, hey, there's two juiced up guys outside beating the crap out of each other. What do you think the people in the bodega are gonna do? They're gonna go run outside to look. They're gonna watch.
That's it. It's not our responsibility to be so concerned with the well-being of the fighters. Isn't the rule protect yourself at all times?
Though if so many in the sport are complicit with this dubious practice, who is Ryan even lying for at this point? Why go through this production?
Because some people are still naive. Because some people still look at the sport through rose-tinted lenses and aren't ready to accept that at a certain level, and when certain dollar amounts are involved, everybody's doping.
It's going to be tough. It's really difficult, and the fighter needs to know that he has to listen. He has to do what he's told. As soon as the fighter comes in and tries to tell you the time he wants to train, that's already a red flag. And if you're a trainer that wants to take it serious and wants to improve and wants to show that you could do it, you say no, it's my way, or pick somebody else. At this time, especially with Ryan, there's so many. The dad, Goose, and Derrick James, even Eddie Reynoso, who has done great with Canelo himself. They could that's probably the reason he's not with them anymore, because they had to put up rules. They had to say this is allowed, this is not. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And maybe Ryan didn't like it. That's why he's those are three of the best trainers out there. You can't pick anybody better than that. And you're still not with any of those. That just tells you that he wants to do his thing on his own, and that's why he's bringing in the dad now. He still has the skills. He still has the power. He still has the speed to connect and knock Barrios out. He could do it, and he's going to do it. And that's the best team ever. That was the best connection that we could have ever seen. No, it's just that the kid is special. The kid has power. The kid is talent, and he could knock anybody out. But it's not because the connection between him and his dad are the best in the world, and they're going to do so many great things together. No, they would have done it since the amateurs to the pros, and they'd be together since. We didn't see that happen.
Goes out there, he knocks out Barrios. It's not just that he might be special, it could also be that Barrios is shit.
Robert's a nice guy. He's not going to say that.
But he does pose a question. Is discipline Ryan Garcia's real issue? And I don't know what to tell you, because I don't think he's all that good.
They say that the talent is undeniable, but he hardly looked talented in the Rolly Romero fight.
And I didn't really think he looked talented in the Devin Haney fight so much as bigger and stronger, more concussive, but more talented?
Yeah.
I do think that discipline is an issue for Brian Garcia. I can't remember who said it. I believe it was Joe Goosen who said, "You don't train Ryan Garcia, you collaborate with Ryan."
What the fuck does that mean?
It means that he's not trainable. If you went from Eddie to Derrick,
then Joe, back over to Derrick, now you're with Henry, now you're with your father.
You're not trainable, and I think you're only really any good when you're on the sauce, when you're on the juice. How much of Ryan Garcia's success can we attribute to what's in the bottle,
to what's in the syringe, and what comes out of the end of a needle?
I've got him beating Barrios. I've got him knocking out Barrios, because I think he's back on the sauce.